More than a month removed from the Knicks T-Wolves trade, a few weeks after Dante DiVincenzo yelled something sweet to the Knicks bench about what happens when you let the team superstar's father run the show. Allegedly. We're a few weeks into the 2024-25 NBA season, and there's already a slew of moments to talk about, except for that Dwayne Wade statue. Let's just move along from that, shall we? Anyway, after numerous intense games in the association so far, it just came to my senses that maybe there's something more than what meets the eye in this Minnesota Timberwolves-New York Knicks trade. More than the already stated reasons. Of course, what I'm talking about is, well, for the T-Wolves, the new CBA repercussions looming and aiming at teams with contracts such as Cats. For the Knicks, the potential problematic fit of Julius Randle playing with the Nova Knicks, with its obvious new dynamics and pecking order in his contract year. I think everyone who watches the NBA already knows this. With that said, as I actually watched the first few games of the season, I realized that maybe the seemingly overlooked reports that the Wolves front office truly believes in Julius Randle's positive impact might really be true after all. I mean, when you consider the added offensive wrinkle he gives the Wolves, the deal actually makes sense. And maybe a strong defense but an immense offensive void from the starting big man, yes, I'm looking at you, Mitchell Robinson, is just not enough if you want to compete at the highest level in today's NBA. It's really not a surprise that after the Celtics won their 18th banner a few months ago, there's no denying that the league, at least for the most part, is leaning towards Mazzulla ball, or the Celtics' offensive model. Essentially, supercharges spacing to optimize offensive attacks. But wait, park that idea for a second. On the surface, their offense obviously is about jacking a lot of threes. Although that's true, the more you truly watch how that offense operates, it's not just the quantity of threes, it's more of its quality. Yes, they shoot tons of threes, but they're basically marrying it with attempts right at the rim. Two of the most efficient shots in the game of basketball. Remember the idea of supercharging spacing to optimize offensive attack. The more I actually watch the screens and how they utilize different angles and types of screens, and waves off cuts to flow from one set of plays to another, actually makes me wonder, is it really supercharging the team's spacing to optimize its offensive attack? Or the other way around, and it's optimizing their offensive attack by their series of screens and cuts and smart off-ball movement that augments their spacing? Essentially, threes and at-the-rim scoring opportunities are obvious, but generating it is where the battle is really at. For the Knicks, the Cat trade is a more upfront attack on this notion. In fact, the entire Knicks starting five is almost a copy of the Celtics starting five. A stretch five who can attack in all three levels, that is, shoot, dribble, or pass, versatile wings and guards that can operate in the paint and punish defenders in space. Needless to say, the self-proclaimed greatest shooting big man of all time can let it fly from the three-point arc. But what is not said enough, especially with his more than 5 three-point attempts per game, and north of 41% makes, is the variety of how he lets it fly and where he lets it fly. Of course, he's not Kevin Durant or Steph Curry, but you can't find a center who comes close to them in terms of three-point attempts, makes, and variations. I'm talking about off the dribble, step back, trailing, fast break, off the screen, and relocation threes. I mean, after all that, let's put some respect on his name.
After all that,
now let's talk about a big topic everyone and their mamas have heard most of the offseason. There has been much talk about losing Isaiah Hartenstein and how debilitating it is to lose a big man for the Knicks considering the connective passing that he provided. That is, before this move. You see, box score creation, which fundamentally measures the open shots you create for your teammates, gave Isaiah Hartenstein an average of 1.5. But with Karl Anthony Towns, that number goes all the way up to 6.4. I know, there is no need to befog you with numbers, but the point is, all of Cat's sweet spots are the spots where Randle and Hartenstein operate, the elbows and the short rolls. Yes, the early returns have been a mixed bag, but third highest points per 100 possessions with 124.2. Second in effective field goal percentage at 58.2%, and third offensive rating at 121.6 is a very promising start for the season. But what about the Wolves? Let's just say it's not perfect, but the more you look at how the Wolves have played lately, the more you believe. While the product in theory might be clunky, the philosophy behind being optimistic about Randle is not totally stupid. It goes without saying that the Wolves lost a lot of their shooting in sheer gravity that Towns provided. But keep in mind, Randle actually shoots just as much as Towns. And granted that he doesn't make it as much, he's actually making up for it with his more reliable playmaking. Intriguing, isn't it? Even more ironic are all the jokes about how he likes to hold the ball. But it's safe to say that he's got far more steady hands and reliable decision-making than Cat. Add to the mix the addition of Donte DiVincenzo, who is looking like Steph Curry 2.0 by the day, and you can really see the vision of the Timberwolves front office. For context, there are only 4 players this season who attempted 9 three-pointers every game while making almost 4 of them in a game. The compounding effects of these additions are very palpable, especially with how the Wolves attack on offense. The crispness and decisiveness of their passing and movement that underlines their collective IQ is clearly evident. This mainly shows on their three-point attempts. As of their first 6 games, the Minnesota Timberwolves already logged 4 games where they attempted more three-pointers than two-pointers, a stark difference from last year, where they only had a single game where they shot more threes than twos. The glaring factor that covered that superstar production, at least in terms of carrying a team's offensive load, is their supercharged offense. In 4 years into the era of well-balanced competition, where the best players are impossible to acquire, never mind fit, maxing out your team's offense with a healthy shot diet is a more viable option. The early results for the teams that recalibrated their offensive attack are promising. The aforementioned Wolves, Knicks, the Cavs, the rejuvenated Warriors, of course, and the up-and-coming Thunder. Let's even include the Lakers. Look, both the New York Knicks and Minnesota Timberwolves have their superstars. They have clear number ones who have proven time and again that they just can't only carry a team, but their stardom can lift an entire franchise. Heck, they can lift an entire city back to basketball relevance. Both are clear top 10 players that can be the best player on the court any given night. You can laugh at all the Michael Jordan comps and the next face of the league praises and adulations given to Anthony Edwards, but you'd have to agree that monikers like Ant or Ant-Man don't do justice to how massive his impact is on the Wolves. I mean, bringing this franchise back to the Western Conference Finals after 2 decades and stomping on the defending champions in the process has no Ant-size impact, or bringing out the best version of Cat and Rudy Gobert. Never mind making them fit. And leading them as a 22-year-old is no small role, like Ant-Man in a Marvel universe. And do I even have to break down Jalen Brunson's mega stardom in New York? Just ask any Knicks fan and they'll tell you. And who can blame them? Maybe it's his improbable rise against the NBA's biggest of stars. Maybe it's his stubbornness to get to the paint despite his physique. Or maybe everything about his insistent style of play and leadership. But one thing is certain, this tenacious guard took his team from the depths of basketball hell back to life. Look, many guards have tried and failed, like Steve Francis and Stephon Marbury, to solid guards like Chris Duhon and Pablo Prigioni, and months from retirement, Jason Kidd. They had flashes of good days from the days of Amari and Melo to, Linsanity.
Pointer as the shot clock expired!
But this team, this city, never had someone they could put their hope and faith in. I say all that to say that both teams actually have strong reasons, especially with their superstars at the heart of it, to pull the lever on the trade. For the Knicks, Brunson's stop-and-start game demands a cleaner release valve like Towns, someone who would not hesitate to let it fly, and so much more. For the Wolves, Randle's ball skills, especially his shot creation and playmaking, greatly add to the offensive attack the Wolves are trying to do. Not to mention, Donte DiVincenzo can really light it up from beyond the arc. Things might change, but a few games into the season, the sheer struggles of Giannis and the Bucks and Jokic with the Nuggets, 2 of the best players in the world, underlines the urgency needed when you have top superstars. It's not good enough to give them substandard material. You can only squeeze so much water out of a rock. Superstars can only generate so much from a sterile roster. Not to play it safe, but ultimately I think this is a rare case of a win-win trade, with both teams receiving exactly what they needed, especially in this era of parity. Both teams supercharged their offense while giving their superstars what they needed. But what do you think? Was this an equally good trade for both the Knicks and the Wolves? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for tuning in.